Look up at the sky above you right now. You have been lied to. The cloud is a fabricated illusion. We interact with screens under the assumption that our data floats through a seamless, invisible ether. But that ether is a myth, a marketing lie. Every swipe of your credit card, every classified military intelligence brief, every high-frequency trade on global markets, and every private message sent overseas does not travel through the air. It runs through physical hardware sitting in the freezing mud at the absolute bottom of the ocean. Our modern, hyper-connected civilization is hanging by a literal thread. These subsea cables form the central nervous system of the global economy, processing trillions of dollars in transactions every single day. Yet they rest in the most hostile, unmonitored environment on the planet, exposed to constant danger from shifting tectonic plates, massive commercial shipping, and hostile foreign governments. Tech conglomerates sold us the marketing concept of an untouchable digital realm, specifically to obscure a terrifying reality. They masked our absolute reliance on a vulnerable physical network, because acknowledging that vulnerability exposes the fragility of the entire modern world. This cross-section of a submarine data cable illustrates the severe physical contrast between the infinite scale of global data and the microscopic hardware that actually carries it. Engineers force terabytes of information through incredibly fragile fiber optic strands. Each of these individual glass strands is exactly the size of a human hair. To survive the crushing pressure, these hairs require a gauntlet of protection. First, a thick layer of polyethylene provides waterproofing. Beneath that, braided steel armor prevents snapping. Further inside, a copper tube carries 10,000 volts to power underwater optical repeaters. All of this heavy shielding surrounds those delicate threads, resulting in a completed cable no thicker than a garden hose. Laying these microscopic glass threads across thousands of miles of deep-sea trenches requires a massive logistical undertaking. Specialized maritime vessels, like this cable-laying ship, spend agonizing months isolated on the open ocean. They move at a crawl, spooling wire while remote-controlled underwater plows carve deep trenches into the seabed to bury belimes. The frictionless magic of the digital age we experience on our smartphones relies entirely on slow, heavy, industrial-era maritime labor. Every piece of global communication is physically dragged across the abyss by sailors working in grueling conditions. Because these cables are physical objects, they are forced to obey the physical topography of the Earth. The global oil trade relies heavily on the Strait of Hormuz to keep tankers moving, so the global internet suffers from severe geographic bottlenecks. Cable layers take the path of least resistance to save billions of dollars, routing lines through the shallowest, shortest marine corridors available. This economic logic creates a fatal geographic flaw, centralizing in Egypt. The natural geography of the Red Sea creates the ultimate single point of failure for the modern internet. Almost all digital traffic traveling between Europe and Asia is funneled out of the water and forced across this incredibly narrow strip of land. Within this geographical bottleneck, dozens of separate, crucial cables are clustered painfully close together. A localized physical disruption in Egypt, whether a targeted explosive charge, a severe localized earthquake, or an errant construction backhoe, can instantly sever digital communication across two entire continents. Looking at this map of the South China Sea, we find the secondary massive vulnerability point, the Luzon Strait near Taiwan. Every line of data connecting Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan to the rest of Southeast Asia converges here, violently squeezing through a tiny physical gap in the ocean between terrestrial landmasses. Data travels at the speed of light, but it cannot tunnel through the Earth's crust. Because digital routing must conform to physical geography, these narrow, undefended straits have evolved into terrestrial chokepoints that essentially hold entire hemispheres hostage. When subsea cables do break, pop culture often blames marine life. Viral headlines frequently suggest that shark bites pose a serious threat to the global internet. The data proves otherwise. Shark bites account for an entirely negligible fraction of network faults. The true cause of catastrophic outages is terrifyingly mundane. Over 60% of all cable faults are caused by massive commercial ships dragging heavily rusted anchors across the seafloor, or industrial fishing trawlers blindly snagging the lines in their nets. A careless captain dropping anchor in a restricted zone can wipe out a nation's GDP for an entire afternoon. Beyond human error, the seabed is an actively hostile geologic environment. We can see the ultimate historical case study of this natural vulnerability by looking at the aftermath of the 2006 Taiwan earthquake. This seismic event ripped apart terrestrial architecture and sparked a massive rescue operation, but the true global damage occurred silently underwater. The Hangshan earthquake triggered violent turbidity currents, massive underwater landslides consisting of dense mud and rock traveling along the seabed at highway speeds. These avalanches sheared through the Taiwan Strait, severing multiple critical undersea cables simultaneously. Within minutes, the regional internet collapsed, entirely blinding banks and plunging Asian financial markets into sheer chaos. If a random shift in tectonic plates or a careless fishing trawler can paralyze global markets in seconds, the internet architecture remains entirely unprepared for a deliberate, coordinated military strike. Governments recognized the value of the deep sea long ago.
During the Cold War, the United States Navy executed Operation Ivy Bells, sending divers into the freezing waters of the Sea of Okhotsk to install physical recording pods directly onto Soviet underwater communication lines. They proved the seabed is a highly effective, invisible theater of war. Today, geopolitical anxiety over deep-sea espionage has escalated into a silent shadow war. Western intelligence agencies routinely track specialized vessels, like the Russian intelligence ship Yantar, loitering for days directly above critical undersea cable routes. These ships carry deep submergence vehicles, capable of mapping the precise physical locations of our digital arteries, gathering intelligence on exact vulnerability points. Military strategists understand the horrifying math of our extreme reliance on these cables. In the event of a modern world war, the opening move of a global conflict would not involve a nuclear launch sequence. An enemy would simply sever these deep-sea cables, instantly blinding opposing nations and crashing their economies without firing a single weapon. Modern warfare relies heavily on satellite targeting, real-time drone communication, and massive logistics chains, all of which require hardwired data transmission. The nation that controls, taps, or destroys these hidden digital lines holds the ultimate kill switch for modern global civilization. We face an extreme paradox. Human civilization has engineered a society that demands absolute, uninterrupted perfection to survive. We require zero latency to function, to trade, and to communicate across borders. Yet our entire existence is tethered to a few fragile strands of glass, sitting entirely unprotected in the pitch black, resting in the darkest and most hostile environment on the planet. As you watch this video, your device is quietly receiving light signals from the bottom of the ocean. The network works flawlessly, right up until the exact moment a line snaps in the dark, and you finally realize how incredibly fragile your connection to the world truly is.